Hello and welcome to the monthly mystical. Hope you're all doing good this evening. I'll turn the background music down a wee bit. There we go. Just needed a bit of background. How are we all this evening? I hope you're well. Thank you so much for joining. So as you obviously know, because that's why you're joining, we have the amazing Gary St. Michael Nottingham joining us this evening to talk about alchemy. But before we start, please do, if you haven't already, subscribe and please like this lovely live performance. That would be lovely. I've had to put I've got my headphones on today because apparently that stops the echo. Please let me know if that works. I'll get a better pair of headphones for next time. Right. And without further ado, hold on, let me just see. Hello. So we got hello Alex, hello Simrius, is it? Hello Underwater's Rain. Or Underwater's Rain. Sorry if I don't say it correctly. Now, sounds okay. Yay! Brilliant. Let's get on then. All right. So without further ado, I'm going to turn off the mad background. This is called Feeding the Ducks music. And we shall introduce Gary. Hello, Gary.
Hi there, folks.
Good evening.
Hello. Nice to be back again. So,
yes, and this is a very exciting talk, so I can't wait. All right, I shall let you get on. Crack on away.
Right. Hi there, folks. Alchemy is what I'm talking about this evening. No doubt you've all heard of alchemy. You've all had, no doubt, even got opinions about it. There's a lot of talk of alchemy from a New Age or Jungian approach, which isn't really the alchemy of the old masters in the past, like Hollandus and Paracelsus and Sir George Ripley, the Canon of Bridlington in 1492. These guys were into alchemy in a big way, and it wasn't always just males. Maria the Hebrew was a famous female alchemist about 2,000 years ago, who invented the bain-marie, which we still have today, of course. Mary Herbert, the Countess of Pembrokeshire, was a noted alchemist at Ludlow Castle in South Shropshire, not far from me, back in Elizabethan times. And today, I know several females with a strong alchemical interest. So it's not, just a male activity. Boys being boys and playing with fire and hot things and things. It's a bit more to it than all that. In the world of alchemy, we see that everything is connected. There is an energy that flows through everything, from the highest to the lowest. And we can work with this manifestation of these energies via the plant kingdom or the mineral or the animal world to create not only compounds that will assist with healing and well-being, but can also be worked with at a magical level and indeed for spiritual development, such as tuning into, shall I say, cosmic energies, for the want of a better way of putting it. Tonight, I want to talk in general terms about alchemy, with some slides showing various bits of equipment and some operations that are being performed or have been performed, shall I say, with also an interpretation of some of the alchemical texts. We'll have a look at some of the 12 keys of Basil Valentine. So what I want to talk about as we start off with is how the alchemists see the world, really. They see there's three energies that runs through everything: the mercury, the sulfur, and the salt. Now, they're not what you might think of as their namesake. the mercury. Can we have the symbols up, please? The first slide.
Oh, yep. There we go.
There we go.
Hold on. There we are.
Right, then we have the planet Mercury as the Mercury. And the Mercury basically is the life force. So if we were dealing with plant alchemy, sometimes it's referred to as spagyrics, but spagyrics is a formula. Solve et coagula, to break down and rejoin. But anyway, you'll come across plant alchemy as being referred to as spagyrics, but we'll stick with that. But some people get a bit sniffy about it, but it's just a minor point. So if we take if we take a vegetable, say a herb, we would say rosemary, for example, and if we'd had approached the plant with due reverence and harvested it at a good time, on a waxing moon, so the energies are rising. So we had the sun making a good aspect to the moon, as the unfortunate said, the moon governs all magic. Or it was traveling through, let's say, Leo. These would actually be good times to work with a solar plant or solar magics generally, in many respects, particularly if we use the solar hour. So we've approached our plant, we've invoked the solar energies, and here we can use hexagrams and conjurations and prayers and meditations and what have you. We've harvested our plant. Our plant is now fresh. It's full of a life force, and the life force is the mercury. We don't want to lose it. So we chop it up and we can put it into a bucket of water, which we can ferment. And if we let it ferment, it'll turn into alcohol. The alcohol is carrying the life force. So the alcohol is referred to as the mercury. And whilst it's not the life force, it is the carrier of the life force. So once we've done that, we can distill it off, and we can acquire our pure alcohol, or as pure as we can get it. And there are various alchemical techniques to render it pretty much, well, you won't get 100%, but say about 99% pure alcohol, because alcohol is hygroscopic in the sense that it will absorb water out of the atmosphere when it gets too strong, and so it's never going to be 100% by its under its own steam. So we've parked our mercury. It's now got the plant life force carrying in it on one side, and we've got the rest of the rosemary, which we then have to distill the oils out of. Now the oils will be the sulfur, and they carry the consciousness of the plant, and we can distill them out via putting them in a flask with water that steams through it, and water's collected, and on top of the water we'll have a thin layer of oil, and the water can be drained off, and we can collect the oil, and the oil, as I say, will be the sulfur. So we now have two principles. We have the mercury and we have the sulfur. Sometimes because mercury is referred to as Diana, or the moon, or the white woman, the white wife, and the sulfur be seen as the sun, or Apollo, or the red king, the red man. These are all terms for the sulfur. In some alchemical artwork, Michael Meyer, we see a king swimming on water, which is the sulfur principle, floating on the water, where he's saying, if you rescue me, you'll gain a great treasure. So these are what they've been referring to. So the plant material, once we've extracted our oils, our sulfur, and our mercury out of it, we can burn, which is referred to as calcination. And what we would do is take the ash, we would leach it with water, and we'd wash the dissolvable salt out of it. And this can be done 2 or 3 times, and the salts themselves will be in the water, and they'll be invisible. And we evaporate the water, and then the salts will appear. They could be a browny color, perhaps, or grey, would be pure white. And then we'd calcine them again, and then we repeat the operation with more water and evaporate them off, calcine them again. We could do this a couple of 3 times, possibly more if it's needed to. And the more we do it, the more refined salts will become, and you can push them through to eventually start turning red. But the purer they are, the more they are going to suck moisture out the atmosphere, like the mercury, the alcohol we were talking about. So what we would do with our salts, well, we'd wait for a run up of a full moon so that the life force in the air is at its most concentrated in alchemical terms, and we put our salts out under a full moon or approach to a full moon. They'll turn to water, or they'll certainly turn wet, depending on how pure they are, and then we can dry them off, and our salts have been made philosophical. They've absorbed the life force. Subsequently, we've now got 3 principles. We have a mercury, we have a sulfur, and we have a salt. And if these are all combined, which will therefore be the chemical wedding, we will then end up with an essence, really, an alchemical essence. There's various themes on what I've just described. There's that is very basic, what I've just described, because there's a lot of other stuff that can be done and other products that can be extracted from this, like fixed sulfur salts and the secret salts, the salamanak, and all manner of things. And there's various approaches to all this. So what I've just described is rather quite a simple approach, because we can combine the salts with the sulfurs and let them digest and keep them warm at the temperature of a hen's egg, and then we can add the mercury in drops, and again keep it at a temperature of what you need to hatch out a hen's egg, as they say, about 40 degrees centigrade, thereabouts. We keep it warm, and we can make a stone out of this. And if we get our salts and we put them into a furnace, and it has to be pretty hot, and I have made them out of dustbins and charcoal before now, alchemical furnaces. We get it up to about 850 centigrade. They'll melt, and don't really want to get any of this near you. And we pour it out, we'll have a pebble that doesn't dissolve in water, and we can feed it with our mercury and our sulfurs, and we can end up, say, making a plant stone, which will contain all the magical and medicinal properties of the plant. And of course, if we use the relevant planetary invocations, as I was just talking about, rosemary and the sun, we do a lot of the operations when the sun is well aspected, or certainly in solar hour, and we invoke solar spirits. Then we are plugging in to the current, endeavoring to get it to manifest within our work. And a lot of this work, well, it's not true to say a lot of this work, all this work you will find is actually alive, and it will have a vibe of its own. It seems to create its own magical space around it. And as the plant that you're working with, the material you're working with, becomes more purified, as you're going through the operations, there's this sense of that which you are working upon, whilst you're affecting it, it's also having an effect on you. And the idea is that it's assisting you to clean out your own negativity when you're working through the solvate coagula process of breaking down and rejoining together. As I say, that's quite a simplified approach, and I think in many respects the art really, the demands of the art really affect the individual who's working with this material, and it will influence and indeed shape your attitude and your life towards things, particularly as you start thinking about clearing out the negative stuff in your own life and your own thoughts when you're breaking plant material down. And this is a principle that works through all three kingdoms. And if we can go on to the next slide, please. Here we are. Right, here we got distillation of alcohol, the mercury. What we got on the top is a distillation head. I had that specially made from glass blower over in Stoke. I've made it various sizes. The idea is that what is being heated will evaporate up into the top of the bulb, and it'll condense against the sides, and then it runs down and drips out the other end. And you can create quite highly concentrated mercuries with this, because it's got a short neck there between the top and the bottom. You don't need as much heat to drive it right up to the top. So it's a gentle method of distillation, because the mercury will come over at 78 degrees centigrade. Anything that comes over before at a lower temperature, you need to bin, because that's where the toxins are. You certainly don't want those. But that's how that would be done. And if we could jump over to the next one, please. And here's an alembic that I had made in Portugal. What happened was I ordered it on the Saturday and it turned up on the Tuesday. I couldn't believe how quick it was. Now this is used for flower oils. It's very good for flower oils. I mean, you could load it up with whatever herb you're using, lavender, for example, or fennel seeds and things, and it really will shift it. It's a lovely piece of equipment, and the one I got at the moment could do with a good clean. This is when I had it brand new. So could we move on to the next slide, please? Here's an alchemical pelican. I'm not sure what's in it. Now, this has got an interesting story attached to it. So basically, these pelicans, the liquid's in the bottom, it's kept warm, and it'll evaporate up, and then it'll condense, and it'll run back down the arms, back down to the bottom, and it'll go back up again, and it keep going like that, circulating. You can keep it going for weeks, and it's an alchemical technique to how can I say, potentize various confections. I had this made in Chester. A glass blower made it for me, and what happened, this is what, 07, yeah, it's a good while ago now. What happened, prior to this, I'd had it on order. My wife Mary didn't know about it at the time. I'd ordered this, and prior to that, we'd done some conjuration work with a spirit of Barden's second book of on evocation, and it was a spirit that was useful in the world of alchemy. And what happened was, she was saying to me that this spirit was telling her that I was going to receive more glassware, and that he was showing her what she described as a egg timer with arms, which is what it does look like. Anyway, a couple of weeks later, we've gone up Chester. We're going to called him, and I came out of this guy's workshop, and she says, just what I saw. And meanwhile, the bloke I'd get the glass getting this made from, he was retiring, and he had boxes and boxes and boxes of glassware, and he didn't know what to do with it. And I said, well, why don't you put it on eBay or something? He said, I can't be bothered. He said, you can have it if you want. So there was all the glassware. It was really quite a weird situation, but it was a very good weird situation. So these are based on all medieval designs. Can we move on, please? Next one. Here we go. Here's the distillation of what I just talked about. The sulfur, the red man. This is rosemary oil here. It's connected up. There's a flask on the bottom, and it all comes up here on steam. It goes right to the top, and then it condenses on a condenser that has cold water running through it. There's the tubes, and it drops back down in, and then because oil, the sulfur will float on the water. The water comes back up here, trickles out, and this fills up with the oil, which you should be able to drain out, but that doesn't have a drain tap on it. But generally they will do. But I mean, from a herb, say from a kilo of rosemary, you'd probably, or lavender, you'd probably get about 10 mils, which isn't really a lot. Whereas, see, if you took rose petal, you'd want a ton, literally a ton of rose petal to get a litre of rose oil. And I think jasmine is the same. So not all plants are as generous as others. Things like lavender, fennel, rosemary, thyme, they're quite generous and easy to work with. Can we go forward, please? Yes, here's our red man. This is the sulfur from St. John's wort, Hypericum, and it contains all the medicinal magical properties of the plant. And this was made, well, several years ago now. And it was part of a confection that I was making for my wife Mary at the time, because I said that she'd had Parkinson's disease, which she'd had, and I looked after her for 5 years, nursed her until she died last August. And we were using this St. John's wort with oil of gold, which I'll come around to in a bit, to whilst it wasn't going to beat sadly the illness, it was going to help her to cope with it. And whilst there was quite a lot of serious concern that with Parkinson's you can get dementia and what have you, she didn't. She was reading pretty much to the last, really. And we put it down to the use of this and various Kabbalistic exercises like the middle pillar and monthly ritual and stuff. So it was quite a combination we were using at that level. But this is a beautiful, beautiful red color, and I was very pleased with this, the way it came out, because what happened, a lot of these plants don't have a lot of oil, and St. John's wort doesn't. And if you remember when I said to you about distilling any oils off and what have you, well, the water that's left over, if you pour the water off, which is now all dark like a dark soup, and then evaporate it, you'll get a gummy tar. And if you put the water back on it and let it digest, and then pour that off and filter it, and then dry it off again, evaporate it, you'll end up with this beautiful red oil. And as I say, it was rather quite a powerful medication, or rather we felt that it was. So this is like alchemy in action, doing something useful with it. Can we move on, please? So we were talking about the salts earlier on in the calcination. Here's some salts having a second calcination, and I'm using an open fire that we had. It's not the best of pictures to try and explain it, but that's what's bubbling away down in there. So could we move on, please? And here's the salts that as I said earlier, they come out as a bit of a browny color, gray sometimes, out of the ash. And then here they are, they've just evaporated. And what's going to happen now is that they will be put back in a flask, put water poured onto them, and let them dissolve. Then they'll be filtered. Plug a funnel, say with cotton wool, and just pour it through gently, and it might take 24 hours to trickle through, and then the water will be evaporated off, and then the salts become a lot whiter and cleaner, more suitable for working with. Could you move on, please? Now here's salts again. Now you see that within the salts there's this hidden, they call it a hidden sulfur. Now if you put these salts back into the fire and calcine them at a very high temperature, and it has to be very high, invariably they'll come out and they'll have this lovely blue, like a blackbird's egg shell. The blue. And when you get them to that level, they're in a very high purified state, and they're considered to be at the most magical to work with. Can we move on, please? Here's the salts in water. They've dissolved. They've been filtered through the funnel that you can see there, or the bottom end of the funnel, and the water will be poured off and evaporated, and then the salts will appear. And move on again, please. And there's calcination of thyme. That is, it was we were running some experiments with a group of people, and we were calcining thyme there. Took all afternoon to burn it. Want to do it so that neighbours don't complain about the burning smells. So move on, please. Hello? Hello? Can we move on, please? Oh dear, it's died. Hello? Could we move on?
Oh, wow.
Can we move
Can you
on, please?
hear me?
I can now.
Hold on.
It's all right.
Oh. Okay, it's just me. I don't know what to do. Right. Okay.
Keep going.
Okay, hang on. Gary wants the next slide. Thank you.
That's it. Well done.
Yes.
Right. Could you go on to the
Yes.
next slide, please?
No idea what the just
Right. Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me? Bugger. Now what's happened? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Right. Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? I can't hear you. I can't hear.
Yeah, I can't hear you. It's something to do with my silly headphones. Can you hear
Right.
me?
Yeah. You taking the phones off now? Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Hello?
I think it might be the silly headphones.
All
Oh my
right. Okay.
God. Always problem.
All right. Hello? Well, bin the
Hold on.
headphones.
So- Bluetooth. Hold on.
Hello?
I'm coming. I'm coming. Yeah, I think
Keep
it's just
going. Keep going.
it's hold on. I can't get it off. Still nothing.
No, I can hear you.
Yeah, I've done that. Done that. Still not hearing anything.
I can hear
Ah!
you. Right.
Speakers.
Um,
Output. Sorry. I don't know
it's all
why it's
right.
not working. Okay.
You with
Kill. I
me?
did. What?
I can hear you.
Oh, can you? Good. Okay.
Yeah.
I just can't hear Gary. Right. Let's carry on.
Okay. Can everybody hear
Just
me?
put your thumbs up if you want me to move on. Sorry. I'll
Can
figure it out.
right? Can you go back? Can you go
Move
back?
on.
Back. Back. Okay. Hold it there. Hold it there. Right. I don't know if you can all hear me, but I'm assuming that you can. So what we're talking about is the ends Melissa. And this is created. Paracelsus has talked a lot about it, and it's
Oh, why can't I?
comes from lemon balm, and it was considered a great heal all. Yes, yes, yes. More than one. And live to tell the tale. Can people hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Right. Okay. Okay.
We can't hear you, but we can.
Okay. Right. So what we got here is Ens Melissa. Paracelsus considered a great heal all. Basically, what's happening is we've got our salts and plant kingdom. We've left them outside overnight on a waxing moon, as we mentioned earlier, and they'll turn to liquid. We've collected the liquid. We might have to put them out 2 or 3 times the salts to get enough liquid. And once we've got our liquid, we've picked our lemon balm leaves, and we want the young lemon balm. And it's best done in the hour of Jupiter, because Jupiter at the moment is in Gemini, where it's at its weakest. So this isn't actually going to be a best time, but it will move on into Cancer next, where it's at its strongest exaltation. And these aspects, I rather feel, will influence the work. Now, what's happening is that the lemon balm that we picked, we've put it into our liquid, and what will happen is it'll break down, and once we've and it'll release its life force into it, which refers to as the ends, the first principle, entia. And if we put our mercury on top of it, our alcohol, it'll absorb it, and as it does so, it'll turn this green color, which we saw earlier. But the curious thing with this confection is if you hold it up to light, it's red. You'll see it as being red. But if you look at it from another angle, you'll see it as being green. So you can have two people looking at it at the same time, and they both seem different colors. It's rather quite a curious phenomena. Some of the old stories considered it to have remarkable powers of rejuvenation, such as getting the feathers on an old chicken to regrow and start laying eggs, and getting hair to grow on people, and fingernails and what have you, all being renewed. I've never experienced that, but it does rejuvenate in the sense that it's quite a pick me up, shall I say? It's worth making. You can do this with other plants and make other ends. So you could do one for each planet, which could be used in various magical endeavors. So can we move on? Here is an old laboratory. We've got John D up there looking down, and it was part of a process working with the volatilization of the salt. Technically, salts do not volatilize; they're too heavy. They do not fly upwards. But in the alchemical world, there are techniques to do this. I can think of 3 of them. I'm about to perform one of them here, which we're going to discuss. And this is rosemary, which is quite a favorite plant of mine. And what's going to happen is that the salts are purified, the sulfur, the oil goes into the retort, which you can see in the little heater there. And then we put the salts in, but the salts have to go in a particular fashion or the working won't work. And when you do it right, there's this like I won't say an explosion, but it's like quite a loud fizz and a pop, and it'll splutter a bit. When we heat it up, the oils come over, and we put the oils back in, the sulfurs back in, and we do this a couple of times, and slowly we will see that the salts will start to rise up, and we will start getting a mist and a fog. And then when that clears, it'll look like a snowstorm in the retort, where if you look at the top of the retort, there's like tiny white specks falling all the way to the bottom, like as if it's a snowstorm, as if it's snowing. And this will keep on, and eventually in the top of the flask and down the beak and down the retort, you will get this frosting, which I'll show you in a minute. And it's quite a remarkable thing. And when you've got this, we clean it out. We put our mercury in the mix, and we distill it over, and it washes all the final salts out with the oils. And then so we got the salt, the sulfur, and the mercury all married together in our chemical wedding, because the mercury will not mix with the salt. The mercury is the spirit, the salt's the body, and subsequently it's the sulfur or plant oils that is the key that holds them both together. So it's like it's like having a body and having its life force, the spirit, and it's held in place by the soul, which is what happens with this working in the plant world. Could we move on, please? And here we see the salts is starting to heat up and come up the flask. And then see it's starting to come over, as we can see, running down here. And on the flask, it's got the sign for sulfur, the sign for salts, reminding me of what's going on. And here is our finished product. You can see how it's like an ice all through it. It's rather a thing of beauty when it happens. It's quite a remarkable work. I thought it was so. And I was taught this by a Canadian alchemist many years ago. Generally, it's always kept as a alchemical secret because not everything is out there, and it was always something that was passed on. But it is out there now. So I don't think it really makes too much of a big deal out of it. Right, Basil Valentine and the first key. Oh goodness, Basil Valentine was a monk, a Benedictine monk, and he wrote quite extensively on alchemy. And his one book, 12 Keys, we have these wonderful pictures, and the pictures tell a story of what's happening. So here we see the king, which of course in the world of alchemy, as we just talked about, is the sulfur. But here it also represents gold. And we have the queen with holding flowers. The flowers will represent one of the alchemical salts known as Salamanak, which is one of those secret keys in the alchemical world. Now, what happens is that we look at the bottom, we see a wolf jumping over the fire that's got a crucible. Basically, what's being explained, and I don't think this is the best picture that does it. I think Michael Mayer did a better picture that explained it. Basically, in the alchemical world, all metals are dead once they've been smelted from their ore, but metals can be revitalized and reawoken, because it's considered that the life force in the metal, once it's been heated, the heat will destroy it and the life force goes back to wherever it comes from. So like gold, it would be the sun, so it's Tippereth, or copper would be Venus and Netzach, for example. But antimony, represented by the wolf, is of the earth, and its life force can go nowhere except stay at earth level. And so with this in mind, the gold, working with gold confections, would actually have to be melted with antimony. Now, it's a curious thing that antimony will melt at about 550. It's highly toxic. You don't want to breathe the fumes in, as Israel Regardie did and damaged his lungs. And gold melts at about 1100 or thereabouts, just under. But if you mix the two metals together, it'll bring the melting temperature down to about 700. There's a technical word for this, but I forget what it's called now. So Basil, he tells us, and I'm going to read this from an article I wrote about this for Daniel Schulk in his Weird magazine some years ago. It was writing about interpreting these keys, so I'll read this bit out for you. It says, first key shows a king and a queen in the background, and in the background is their palace. In the foreground, a wolf jumps over a fire, watched by an old man who wields a scythe. The text explains that all impure things are unworthy for our work. However, the section that concerns imagery advises us that the king's crown should be pure gold and a chaste bride should be married to him. Therefore, take the ravenous grey wolf, that would be the antimony, that on account of his name is subject to bellicose Mars, but by its birth is a child of Saturn, and that lives in the valleys and the mountains of the world and possesses a great hunger. Throw the king's body before him that he may have his nourishment from it. And when he has devoured the king, then make a great fire and throw the wolf into it so he burns up entirely. Thus will the king be redeemed. If this is done thrice, then the lion, which will be the king, has conquered the wolf, and nothing more to eat will be found in him. Thus is our body completed at the start of the work. So this is basically a purification technique the old alchemists used. And in doing so, the gold is re-enlivened. The antimony, the grey wolf, when it's heated with gold, the antimony will devour any metal or anything that shouldn't be there, and it'll float on top of the molten antimony, which you can clean off. So that's the antimony eating everything. The grey wolf is devouring everything. And the gold, the king, what happens is that the gold is not eaten by the antimony, and it will fall to the bottom as a pure bead that's pretty much 100% gold. And if you do this a couple of 3 times, then the gold becomes even more clean and more purified and more supercharged for the work. Could you move on, please? Hello. Thank you. Here we are, homemade furnace. There's a dustbin. Hang on. Just hold it there. No, back. We're going too far. Right. Hold it there. What the fuck's going on now? Right. Just leave it there. Leave it there. Now, remember we were talking to you a minute ago about the wolf, and how antimony is seen as the wolf. Here's a homemade furnace. I've got an air dryer blowing through it as the air source. The antimony and the gold is in there in the crucible. And so, as I said, alchemy has its own energies that sometimes manifest, that you'll see them. And if you look at the flames, they've taken the shape of the wolf. You can see its ears, you can see its snout, you see its eyes, and it's this is more of an orange than a grey colour, but that's the nature of the colour of the fire. And it's taken this wolf-like appearance, which I took as a good sign as being the spirit of the antimony, which I was rather quite pleased about. Right, there is the king. We poured it out, and there's our gold bead at the bottom. Therefore, as Basil Valentine says, that the king will walk out of the fire purified. He's been enlivened, and there he is. Right, hold it there. Now, here's the second key that Basil talks about. You're looking at it, it doesn't mean too much. Nice picture, but that's about it. Now, in the second key, Basil is talking about what's to be drunk at the king's court. And we have the bridegroom Apollo must be bathed before his marriage to Diana. As Apollo is the god of the sun and gold is solar by nature, our king is quite obviously the purified gold from the first key. Basil Valentine tells us the precious water in which the bridegroom needs to have his bath must be made cleverly and carefully from 2 fighters. We've got 2 fighters here. It is not useful for the eagle to make its nest alone at the top of the Alps, for his young would freeze from the snow high up in the mountain. But when you introduce to the eagle the old dragon, who has dwelt long amongst the rocks and who creeps in and out of the caves of the earth, and set the 2 upon a hellish seat, then Pluto will blow strongly and drive out the cold dragon, a flying, fiery spirit whose great breath, great heat will burn up the feathers of the eagle and prepare a steam bath. So the snow on the mountains must melt entirely and turn into water, whereby the mineral bath is rightly prepared and can give the king good fortune and health. Now, you'd hear that and you think, what the hell is he on about? And it can seem a bit unbalanced and meaningless. But the bridegroom's bath is prepared from the result of the combat between the two opposing warriors, which we can see from the position of the two males. The two combatants are the dragon and the eagle, which can be seen from the animals on their weapons. It looks like a snake on the one, but we'll take it as being a dragon. In alchemical terminology, the eagle is often equated with a salt called ammonium chloride or salamanak. You can get this from urine, which in the work of Hollandus is referred to as the salt which all men seek. This salt, which can be found naturally occurring, is also found in urine, and when prepared as the art demand, is the key to opening many metals in alchemical working. It will sublimate them when heated and pass into a solid state to a gas, then back to a solid state once it cools, and when it condenses on a cold surface. And as it does so, the purer particles become airborne as the dross is left behind. So this is a salt that is used quite extensively in alchemy. It goes on to say that the dragon is the saltpeter, again, which is another salt used in alchemy, and it's also found that also occurs in urine, amongst other places. Although the symbol of the dragon can be used for antimony as well as the grey wolf, which we have seen in the first key, this can become confusing as some symbols are used for more than one substance. Saltpeter contains niter, something which is released into the atmosphere during thunderstorms and is explosive. It can also be found in gunpowder. It has the ability to lower the temperature of water in which it has been placed to dissolve. However, with careful distillation without it exploding, an art known to the alchemist, a fiery burning spirit manifests, which is nitric acid or aqua fortis, or strong water. When the two salts are mixed together, and as Basil says, introduced the eagle, the old dragon, and placed in the retort in a furnace, that's the hellish seat, and heated strongly, Pluto, god of hell, starts to blow. A vigorous action does ensue, and the highly corrosive acid will distill over. And this is the fiery spirit whose great heat will burn up the feathers of the eagle. This acid is the mineral bath and is a form of aqua regia, the king's water, and is also known as the king's bath. This is a mixture of the two acids, hydrochloric and nitric acid, which when combined will dissolve gold, the only acid to do so, and is part of the process in breaking down the gold to a fine calx. The imagery of Mercury standing between the two fighters represents the liquid which has been distilled from them both. That is the liquid which flies out from the two fighting salts. So you see, Basil was telling everybody how to do it from the imagery, if you can get into the mindset of working it out. Could we go on to the next key, please? Now here is the third key. This is rather quite a nice one. In the third key, he says how our water conquers the fire. Our fiery sulfur must be prepared for this art and conquered with water, so that the king is utterly shattered and made invisible. But his visible form must this time appear again. This imagery is referring to the action of the prepared acid water on the purified gold, which of course is the sulfur of the previous keys. By adding the acid to the gold, it will dissolve, particularly if it is gently heated. The text refers to this as being utterly shattered. The gold becomes an acidic solution and is referred to being made invisible. Making his visible form appear again suggests the evaporation of the acid. The residue from this action is the gold forming a gold chloride. The gold chloride is unstable when it's heated and will return to gold. Thus, the king becomes visible again. Continuing with the instructions, Valentine tells us, he who would prepare our unburnable sulfur of all the sages must take care to seek out our sulfur in something where it is unburnable, which cannot be done unless the salty sea has swallowed the corpse and then entirely spit it out again. The term sulphur of the sages is a name which is sometimes used to describe the philosopher's stone, and to obtain it, Valentine implies that more acid, that is the salty sea, must be used to redissolve the gold. He is describing the alchemical work of coagulation, an alchemical technique which is considered to strengthen the material as it absorbs certain alchemical properties. In this work, the liquid is distilled off the substance and then reintroduced onto it. Again, it is then redistilled and poured back over the remains. This can be done for days and is a slow operation to perform, as one may surmise. Valentine continues, then raise him up in degrees so that he far surpasses all the other stars of heaven in brightness. This is the rose of our masters, scarlet in colour and the red dragon's blood. Endow him with the flying power of a bird as much as he needs. Thus the rooster will eat the fox, be drowned in water, be made living by fire, and be eaten in return by the fox. So like and unlike are made alike. So reminding ourselves of the third key, we can see the red dragon in the foreground and the cockerel both eating a fox. And being eaten by him. On reflection, we may see the cockerel as emblem of the sun, therefore symbol for the gold. And as the fox is eating the cockerel, this would be an emblem representing the acid. Therefore, the gold drinks the acid, the fox eating the cockerel, and is dissolved, and it is dissolved in it, drowned in water. When it is heated and the water evaporates, this is the cockerel coming back to life, and is then repeated by being redissolved in fresh acid, thus the fox eating the cockerel again. However, the phrase, then raise him up in degrees so he far surpasses all other stars of heaven in brightness, alludes to the operation of making the gold volatile. As the text says, endow him with the flying power of a bird. Yet gold being so heavy seems an unlikely subject that can be made volatile and have the ability to fly upwards when heated. It is solid and stable in the fire, so how can it therefore evaporate? To make the fix volatile and the volatile fix is often alluded to in alchemical texts with no clear explanation of what being referred to, nor how to do it. In 1895, 300 years after Basil Valentine's science was finally able to volatilize gold, something which Valentine and his fellow alchemists had managed to do previously. The key to the working is long, slow coagulation of the acid upon the gold. This constant repetition forms and decomposes the gold chloride, which fills the flasks with a chlorine gas. The toxic gas presents decomposition of the unstable gold chloride, and thus will allow the formation of sublimate gold as beautiful ruby red crystals, or as Valentine says, this is the rose of our masters, scarlet in colour, and the red dragon's blood. Whew. Well, many years ago, I was working with this, and the flask, the top of the bowl on top of the flask, it just filled up with this beautiful, beautiful ruby color, rather quite remarkable. And it was just as Basil Valentine said 300-400 years ago, the red rose of our master. It was quite a remarkable sight. Sadly, I don't have a picture of it, but never mind. Could we move on, please? Thank you. Now, here's oil. It's part of the operation we've just been talking about. See, here's the aqua regia, the king's bath, and there's the gold. It's gold leaf going into it. Now, one thing about this, you want to pour the acid onto the gold, because I have found if you put gold, and I was using gold leaf here, into it, it'll burst into flames. I found that happened a couple of times. In the fumes, the gold will just burst into flames. Whereas if you pour the acid onto the gold, it won't do. And be mindful, this stuff is dangerous. So do not get anything like this or the plant salts, which are highly hygroscopic, we talked about earlier, near any part of your anatomy that is sensitive. It is quite dangerous in that sense. So here we have the king's bath and the gold starting to dissolve. Now, this is commercial acid. Really, what you should be doing is making your own, as Basil talks about in there, because then that would be philosophical. I was trying, this is the early days when I was trying a technique out, see how it all worked. Could we move on, please? See, and there it is. It's dissolved quite nicely. Well, anyway, after a lot of faffing around, this was the end product. I was following a complete different recipe formula. Basically, once the gold is dissolved in the acid, if we pour on top of the acid cinnamon oil or rosemary oil, both solar oils, incidentally, they will float on top of the acid. They don't mix. And as they do, they absorb the medicinal and the magical qualities of the gold into the oil. And you'll know it's working because it turns this beautiful red. This is one way of doing it. There are other ways to make oils of gold. This is quite a simple way, really. It's quite a nice work, and I do like the colouring. So here's the gold that we're working with. See, there it's in the acid. Anyway, we're moving on to mugwort, a mugwort quintessence. Nice. Oh goodness. Quintessences will have some of the volatile salts. An elixir will have all the volatile salts, and tinctures are just basically have the salts in them, as I understand it. What's going on here is the mugwort has had the oils taken out of it, the sulfurs, and the water that's being left is being evaporated down to a soup. What you see on the flask will be the sigil generated by taking the name of mugwort, and because it's Venusian, tracing the lettering out on a Venus camea, producing a sigil, calling on the planets of Venus, rather, god names and archangels and the angels, that the spirits of mugwort will arise and assist one in one's holy operation of the art. So for me, this becomes an involvement of magical thinking, astrological timing, Kabbalistic conjuration, pulling it all together with the alchemical practice. And if you go back to Hermes Trismegistus, where he talks about having three parts of the knowledge of the world, well, that's astrology, that's alchemy, and that's ritual magic, in my way of thinking. And for me, the three subjects all bolt together rather quite nicely. And I think alchemy is much more enhanced when you involve astrology, when you're using, for example, Kabbalistic or planetary invocations of one hue of another, and endeavoring to connect with it magically. I mean, because if you're so minded, I mean, you could be building up around you the relevant god forms to invoke the Sephira as part of your working, as endeavoring to connect with the current of it all. So it all bolts together quite nicely. So once we've evaporated it all down, this is our honey at the bottom. And can you see a face in it? I can see a nose and two eyes. Looks like I don't know if you can see that. I took it as being the plant spirit looking back at me. these things are alive. They are alive. They have an energy of their own. So held it up against the light here, and you can see the colouring a lot more clearer now. It's this beautiful oily, sticky, oily mess that contains the power magically and medicinally of the mugwort. So this would be the sulfur, when we talked about the red man we saw earlier. Right, here's another work. This isn't mugwort. This is oil of egg. This is animal alchemy. You can get an oil from egg yolk that was rather quite a healing oil, good for scars, burns, supposed to clean out blocked arteries and various plaques and cholesterol deposits in the system. I don't know about that, but it's right. But I do know that it is good for dressing burns and cleaning up scars and generally healing like that. So basically we've taken egg yolks and they've all been dried off and powdered up, and you can extract the medicinal properties out of it with various things. Acetone would be one, but I don't use that if I was using it externally. You can with ether, but I've never tried it. Alcohol, which is another one. Right, here we have, this isn't mugwort, this is egg yolk that has been dissolved. We've been taking our healing potencies out of it, and we are distilling them off. And here they are. They're soaking in acetone here, as I recall. I remember making this a few years ago. And you can see it's taking up the colouring, which will be the sulfur, which will have the medicinal properties. And again, we can see it here. See, and the oil, because it's oil, the sulfur will float on water. So we've tipped everything into water, boiling water, which is all dissolved, and what we have left floating on the top will be the oil, which contain all the, as I say, medicinal properties of the egg yolk. And here we have it all cleaned up and in a flask, seeing how much we got out of all that. It's about 100 ml, so we didn't actually get a great deal. I'll put this down as alchemical odds and sods. Here's the alembic that we had in the beginning. It's sealed with flour and water, because if you seal it with flour and water, it's called luting. It'll stop any leaks. Excuse me, but it's on firm enough. But if there was too much pressure, it will blow. So the flour and water is quite a good way of sealing it, really. No damage is going to be done. What we got there is peppermint there, harvested out of the garden. Now these are salts. Remember we were talking about salts, washing salts and evaporating them. There's a big dish of them on there, all evaporating. It'll probably take all day just to dry it off. And there's the salts there, highly hygroscopic. I wouldn't try putting them up your nose or anything like that, or anything near your sensitive areas of one's anatomy. They will burn, and keep them away from your eyes. They're highly alkaline, and they will damage you. Now, remember we were talking about the volatilization of rosemary salt, where we had all that wonderful icing crystallization in the top of the flask. Well, here was the astrology chart at the time showing me what was going on, because I couldn't get it to work. And I thought I've got the astrology wrong on this. And there we are. We have the sun in the 9th house up there, and it's intercepted. That is, it's not in any actual, there's no house rising in sign. Astrologers will know what I'm on about. Anyway, so what happened was, I'm saying to the salts that I was going to tell so-and-so, the guy who showed me how to do this, that they're not, that they were playing up and weren't working. And I sort of said it as a bit of a joke. And suddenly they just started working. And it was one of the nicest volatilizations of the salts I've ever done. So that's the power of the name, I suppose. What's going on here? This is oil of gold. We've got salts on it, but it's not salts. I was just looking at how red it's turned out. There we go. See it there in the bottom of the pelican. That's rather quite a nice red, and that's full of the life force and the magical potencies of gold. Remember the piece of gold that we had that we put through the antimony when we saw the wolf appear out of the flames of in the fire. This was the end product turning up here. And I think we might have. That's it. We've done. So, well, folks, this is just a crash course, if at best. We could have talked about stuff, alchemical stuff, all night, and various approaches. We could have gone into a lot of other stuff at a lot deeper level. There's only so much time, and I wanted to get through quite a bit of stuff just to show you that alchemy was not just new age psychological waffle. And I think the terminology has been hijacked by those who don't really understand where we're going with it all. So you see, the thing is, if you make these confections, these products, and you consecrate them, and if you was to take them daily in the hour of the planet with various planetary invocations, they can be part of your daily practice that helps you to connect with the planetary energy of the day. And thus, as time goes by, your psyche becomes, shall I say, in tuned with the planets and the energies of creation. So it does have a lot to offer, very much so. If it's all blessed and consecrated prior, then you've got a useful magical ally. There's a lot of good things that it can do for you. So thank you for having me. And I'm sorry that we seemed to go on a bit adrift at one point, but I don't know what happened there. But we are where we are, and I hope it's encouraged you perhaps to look a little deeper into the alchemical art.
Well, I'm assuming you can all hear me. Sorry, there's a bit of a delay, so I'm not sure where I am. You're still talking on here. I'm assuming you can all hear me. Sorry, oh, I can hear myself. Where I am, you're still talking on here. Right, I can hear my delay now. Right. So, yes, thank you so much, Gary. I'm assuming that you've finished. But because I can't hear you, then I can only hear you on this, so it's delayed. Thank you so much for coming. And it was very good. I missed the middle bit. Let me just shush this up. Right.
Hello?
So yes, I will replay so that I can hear the middle bit. Oh, there's one more. There's a question. So you also further. Oh, here you can see it yourself. There we are.
Yeah. I feel that it is a good thing to do, because you are you're separating it from the everyday world, and you are focusing your intent upon it, and you're endeavoring to connect with the energies that are behind it. So I rather think it's a good thing to do. Okay. Confections, well, things that you're making is what I'm referring to.
Okay. Well, yes.
Somebody said something about
Okay.
explosions.
We'll leave it there because I still don't. You're still talking. I don't know where you are.
Oh, sorry.
All right. Thank you so much, then, Gary. Oh, okay. Explosions.
No,
carry on.
Somebody said something about explosions. Yes, I'd had 2 or 3 of those, and they're hell of a mess to clean up afterwards.
Oh, okay.
So I'll leave it at that. Somebody said something about explosions. Yes, I'd had 2 or 3 of those.
Right. Okay. Right. I think we'll. Yes. Brilliant. Okay. Right. Let's get cracking off because it's awkward. All right. Thank you so much, Gary, for coming. And I would love to hear you again. I'll make sure I sort out these headphones. Thanks very much.
Bye. Bye.
Bye for now. I would love to hear you again. Right. And thank you so much for the rest of you, everybody that turned up this evening. It's been such fun, and yes, I've really enjoyed it as usual. Me and Tech don't seem to get on very well. We seem to have a problem. If anybody's got any tips for me, please do put them in the comments. I don't know what went wrong, but I still can't hear myself, and yeah, so goodness knows. All right, so thank you anyway for coming. Please do, don't forget, please subscribe if you haven't already to the channel, and put your notifications on. And also, don't forget to like this this broadcast. It all helps with the algorithms, and hopefully more of you can see these amazing talks. We've got some more coming up. I know I've got one in very soon. I've got one in, well, we're in March. So I think I've got 1 or 2 in March. So please keep your eyes peeled. And I will be actually doing some stuff. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Just little snippets, just to get me into doing something. So yes, I'm hoping you can all join me for that. I'm not sure if I'm going to go live or not, but who knows. All right. I love you all. Have a fabulous evening. Thank you so much for coming, and I hope to speak to you all soon. If not in person, then definitely on here. Come and see me soon. All right. Have a fabulous night. All right, and we're off. Okay, don't forget to subscribe. Share it everywhere. Bye for now.